Basic Internet of Things starter kit, lovingly referred to as BISKit, started in 2020. It started as a project underneath the IDIQ. The idea was that we would be able to educate operators even if they had no prior experience with IoTs. So it needed to be online, it needed to be self-paced and accessible anywhere in the world. So we determined that the best way to do that would likely be to create an online learning management system. We have a kit that was built with the end goal of being able to have an operator set up a safe house somewhere far, far away without anybody knowing that he was doing it. So we needed items that would be readily accessible, low cost, that all met the cost threshold of $2,500 or less, and able to be, drop shipped to anywhere in the world.
I think to think in terms of the benefit, you have to think a little bit in terms of the motivation for it. So back in 2021, General John Brennan came forward with a proposal. He said we need to employ a naked man concept. So what he means by that is essentially that someone can come into a country with zero electronic signature. They can buy the hardware they need. They can find the software they need. They can download it. They can build something, right? They can use it to achieve a mission, right? They do all that without being able to raise their electronic signature. We picked a multitude of topics: RF, software, hardware, sensing, and put it all together in a cohesive course. And it took a number of different iterations to kind of get that right. What can they do? They can procure this kit. They can cobble together the software. They can set up perimeter. They can set up, small AI/ML systems to do object detection, recognition, facial detection, recognition. Again, all to achieve, that particular mission. So, from that sense, it's really an enabler of all of those capabilities, and to the ends of the naked man concept.
So to use BISKit is really simple. You simply log in and you're shown a dashboard of all the different labs. There are 8 to 10 labs, depending on which phase you're doing. And all you need to do to start a lab is just click on it. You're going to see a welcome intro slide. You can read through that. It has the learning objectives, all the materials that are needed for the lab. There are different lessons and topics in the labs. So you click on a lesson and that lesson will have multiple topics. So for instance, Raspberry Pi is the first lab. The first lesson you click on and it's gonna teach you about imaging and inserting the micro SD card to flash your Raspberry Pi. At the end of each lab, there's gonna be a what's next section that's gonna tell you a little bit of information about the next lab. And then you can also go into a dig deeper, which is a kind of like a stretch goal project or just more reading or video resources to learn more about what was just presented in the lab. So for this phase 4 BISKit, we've built a super cool robot. And after each lab, they build a little bit upon it. At the very end of our project, you will have to complete a hackathon that puts all of the concepts that you've learned in the course together and tests your critical thinking skills and knowledge about those IoT devices. I've got to learn a lot about Raspberry Pis. I got to build my own computer. I learned about circuit design, facial recognition, networking, and building security systems, all which gave me a leg up in the industry.
What are the next directions? So, it would be nice to have the same motivation that we got from General Brennan. But vacuous of that, we can take the spirit of that and say, hey, how about autonomy and robotics? Why would you do that? Well, if we can build an understanding of what that technology is, and the folks that are out there in the field using it, like a Boston Dynamics dog, for example, and it doesn't behave well, that doesn't bode well for trust. But maybe they're using it outside of its limits. Maybe they don't understand what those limits are. So if we can build an understanding of what autonomy is, of what robotics is, it can build an inherent trust. And if you look down the road, when these guys become the procurers, the people who buy these systems and write specifications for them, they'll have much better insight. I think another thing to think of too is, certainly there's the whole cybersecurity realm, but also RF, And I think, if you think in terms of penetration testing, it's a skill that is awesomely useful in a defensive, but also in an offensive sense. So it's, in that sense, it's a little bit of an extension and in-depth to the kind of topics that we touched on in BISKit. So pull together off-the-shelf kinds of components that will let you listen to the RF spectrum spoofed. There'll be an offensive technique, or find out when you're being spoofed in the RF spectrum. So there's a whole wide gamut of areas that we could touch in the cybersecurity area. And there's others. Again, the LMS, the infrastructure that we have, the expertise we have in-house would let us flex into any one of those areas and still others. I think anytime you make our troops smarter, you are enhancing national defense. And I think having it as a capability that we can pivot and go into different areas, will demonstrate its future ability to contribute to the defense of the country as well.